It's Christine Wilson and Saphira Galoob, and you'll thank us later. Tune in every week and hang out with us because we're a lot of fun.
And no topics off the record, we decided. We are open to talking about everything together with a bit of a sense of humor, a lot of self-forgiveness, a lot of grace, and always being wiser on the other end. Bring it on, girls and boys.
You know what? You'll thank me later that I'm telling you about this. You'll thank me. They're going to hate us, Saphira. It's going to be nuts. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you?
Getting close to Christmas. I'm not sure what that means.
The UPS driver and the FedEx driver hate me because I am last minute Sally and all online. It is.
I prefer online.
Jeff Bezos loves you.
Fight people.
Yeah, Bezos is like just counting his dollars. Did I ever tell you that I got a handwritten thank you note from Amazon thanking me for being such a good customer?
I remember this.
I mean, this was early days of Prime. Early
days, yeah.
And Oj said he wants evidence of it so that if we ever get divorced, he could enter it as evidence of why he had to leave me. But so I haven't wrapped a thing. But it's arriving. It's all coming. I'll figure it out this weekend. I'm wearing my velvet top today. I'm trying to get into the spirit. I will say very exciting news about this shirt. I bought it a couple years ago. It still had the tags on it today. And when I bought it, I got it home and I put it on and it like stopped at my waist. Like it could not go over my hips or my rear end and it looked terrible. And I put it on today and it's too big. It looks like a tunic. It's like, I got room. It's all the way over my butt. There's like, I could put things in there. It's so much space. And I was like, tags are finally coming off. I'm so excited.
I love it. I want you to take a picture. Send me a picture later because I want to see it like in front of the mirror. I want you to definitely.
Oh, you can't really see. But
yeah, you can't see it.
Yeah, you can't standing up and it doesn't work.
Send me a picture of it. I'd love to see it.
But I have a great story for you, Nicole. I had a little chit chat with our dear friend Saphira the other day, and we were talking, and she's like, "I've got this. There's this new podcast. It's really breaking out." And she said, she named it, and at the time I had looked at it, but I didn't recall it by name, and now I'm forgetting what it is. It's called Not Gonna Lie, and I was like, I don't know if I know that, but. Because I just hadn't taken in the name. And she's like, yeah, it's with some girl named Kylie Kelsey. And I'm like, oh, the Kylie Kelsey podcast. I'm like,
Kylie
Vera.
Kelsey.
yeah. That I was like, it's number one. It's like kick Joe Rogan's ass. Like, fuck Joe Rogan. But anyway, I was like, yeah. And I'm like, so Saphira, you know who Kylie Kelsey is, right? And Saphira looks at, she answers, she's like, no. And I was like, well, she's married to Jason Kelsey. And I'm like, wait.
I would just say, like, if she would have seen my face, it would have been like crickets.
I was like,
I can picture this conversation happening.
Yeah. And then I said, well, do you know Jason Kelsey is the brother of Travis Kelsey, thinking that would be the aha moment. Nope. I said, Travis Kelsey dates Taylor Swift. And she's like, oh, okay. All right. Okay. I know that person. Oh, I was like, Saphira,
I tell you all my Wycliffe Jean story. So I am on a plane going to Davos, Switzerland to attend the World Economic Forum activities around cannabis. We weren't ever involved in the formal, but like major global summits, they have like these side activities. And so I was on a plane headed to Zurich, and I was in business class, and I was sitting next to a gentleman who was really interestingly clad, super bright, vibrant colors. And we're just chatting it up a bit, as one can do sometimes in business class with colleagues or whatever. And we're just chatting just casually. And I was like, oh, yeah, so what's your interest? What do you do? What's your business? He's like, I'm in the music business. I was like, well, I mean, have I ever heard of anything you've done? He goes like, I'm Wycliffe Jean. And I was like, excuse me? Oh, I'm Wycliffe Jean. I was like, I'm so sorry. Can you please spell that for me? And he tells me, I said, oh, Wycliffe Jean. I was like, oh yeah, never heard of you.
Oh my God.
And he started saying like, like people who he's worked with. He goes, Lauren Hill. I was like, oh, Lauren Hill. Oh, I know who Lauren Hill is. But the funniest thing is that his girlfriend at the time was in there and she was laughing her ass off because I was legitimately like, what? What did you say? What que jeune? And I
Mhm.
speak French. And so like I should have been able to keep up with it. Well, the funny thing is I saw him a few months ago because he is a huge cannabis reform, criminal justice reform. And I saw him and I hadn't seen him since that plane. And I said, do you remember me? And he didn't remember until I told him. And then I said to him, now I know who you are. I said, the question is, Wycliffe, do you know who I
I
am?
am.
And we had the best, and he and I think we have this little love connection now. I'm not a real love connection, but like an
Yeah.
affection connection. But I will tell you, I am like literally in terms of Stump the Chump. And when you were going to tell Nicole on the whole Kelsey Kylie, I'm like, people are going to think I'm an idiot in podcast land. But it does show that you can step yourself off the grid and really be off the grid if you want to.
Yeah.
I am evidence of it, not intent from an intentionality perspective. But if you want to stay away from the noise, you can actually stay away from the noise.
But I think in some ways it is intentional, right? So you have made the choice to prioritize other things besides pop culture, social media, and those things. And I mean, I guarantee you can name about 54 books that I haven't read and
We
authors
can
that I
fight about
don't
that.
know,
I will tell you, I can
artists,
name
all sorts of
every
things.
single thing that happened with the continuing resolution since November the 20th. That's what I can tell you.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I think the government's going to shut down or something. I'm like, I don't even know.
Well, I will tell you, it is looking more and more like that. It is looking more and more like.
I'm just so glad that Elon is running our government for us now.
Oh,
It's
oh
looking
yeah,
really efficient. It's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah. By
Yeah.
democracy. Let's just have the billionaire in charge. I love it.
I mean, for God fucking sakes,
Yeah.
what the fuck happened? But ultimately, I thought that was a great story. And I only tell these stories because I think they're very endearing and I love it. And because it's just fun. And good for Kylie. I'm so happy
Oh,
for
I'm
her.
so glad. And it's probably good that she's a thought leader on real authentic things. And the funny thing about it for our audience members is that I was actually all proud of myself because I said, hey, Christine, there's this podcast that just hit number one. Do you think we can make a reference to it? And then when people are searching for it, they'll come up with our stuff. Like I thought I was being super clever, not realizing what a nincompoop I was demonstrating myself to be.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's great. It is clever and it is good marketing and, like-minded audience and interests, that is a great way to market it. So A plus. I think
Yeah.
it was great.
Thank you.
Well, I asked for the topic that we're going to talk about today, and I think it's a good one to talk about before the holidays. And it is something that probably a year ago, I probably would not have been comfortable having this conversation. A lot has changed in my life in the last year, and I think I can be more open and honest and more reflective. But I asked if we could talk about our relationship with alcohol today. And I don't think in my adult life I have really been able to have probably truly open, honest, reflective conversations about alcohol because I was pretty defensive about it and not super comfortable or able to um, openly talk about my relationship with alcohol. But being someone that suffers from anxiety and potentially anxiety that's actually ADHD, masked as anxiety, who knows? I would say the vast majority of my adult life, I have used alcohol in some way to help cope with my anxiety. I also really bought into the socialization and entertainment and party culture of alcohol. I didn't drink a lot in my teen years because my mom was pretty strict. I definitely tried, but it was harder to get away with. But when I got to college, I was all in party scene, drinking 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week. Get in line, get the drinks, get two so you don't have to have a downtime between drinks. I really bought into the college party scene, and I think I pretty much carried that through my life, at different, it obviously changes as you have more money and your social life changes and all of that. But I noticed where alcohol became more of an issue was in my, I would say, after having the kids and they were a little older and I didn't have to do as much hand holding at night, wine became my substitute for exercise, sleep,
Mhm.
meditation, anti-anxiety remedies,
Mhm.
and it was just a lot easier to watch The Real Housewives and drink a bottle of wine. And, I think that there were times where it was concerning to my husband and probably to my children too. And I think that for the most part, my behavior didn't drastically change. I'm probably pretty fun when I have alcohol until I'm not. And there were times where I would drink wine and become very angry with my husband and frustrated with him, and he hated having to deal with that. And the only reason I can say this year that I'm more reflective on all of this is because I went on a GLP-1, and one of the magical side effects of these drugs is that drastically curbs, one, your interest, and two, your tolerance of alcohol. And it was one of those things where it was like an immediate change to my behavior. I'm not drinking wine during the week. I'm not even that interested in drinking when I'm out. It's almost like I'm tolerating a drink in order to be social now. And I'm trying different things like mocktails and other things, or not drink. And wine is, I mean, wine is always my go-to. Great Cabernet from California is my drink. I almost feel sick when I think about it. Um, and I saw a TikTok go by the other day and it said, it took going on Ozempic for me to realize I was almost a full-fledged alcoholic. And I was like, whoa, whoa. That really hit home. Now, I don't think I was a full-fledged alcoholic. I think I had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and it had become an anxiety calming crutch. It also became something I didn't know how to socialize without. Um, and I now am at a point where there's been times where I've enjoyed drinks. I've like having a really nice cold, dirty martini is fabulous. And then that's all I want. And it's really nice. It's not drinking for drinking to be numbed sake. It's drinking to enjoy the drink. So that's a long-winded way of saying I wanted to bring this up because I think alcohol and people's relationship with alcohol and how they grow up and how they learn to drink and behave with alcohol is such an important conversation. And I think people are embarrassed and not sure how to discuss it. So I know I just dropped a lot, but
Now,
that's
I'm actually impressed that you thought about this as a topic, and that you're willing to share not just with us, but like all of our listeners, kind of a lifelong kind of manifestation of where alcohol has fit, and when
mhm,
that has been healthy, and when you can see it having been unhealthy, and looking back on it. Because I do think the trajectory of a journey on any kind of like the way we've lived our life, alcohol is just one element of it, is really so important for kind of like who I am now, where do I want to go, and what do I need to keep to get there, and what do I need to jettison to get there.
right.
Um, and it is such a I mean, it's such a personal, alcohol is such a personal thing in so many people's lives, depending on like whether or not you had alcoholism in your family, whether or not that disease informed the way people who you loved treated you or treated each other. I mean, definitely where alcohol contributes to violence, and it contributes to, kind of the breaking down of healthy relationship um, boundaries. I mean, and it's particularly if you have children who have a relationship with alcoholic, such a complicated topic. So just the fact that we were able to talk about it could possibly, hopefully, inform and encourage people who are listening to actually think about it for themselves. Um, you know, Not a surprise to you, Christine and Nicole, that Christine and I continue to find how different we are, as much as we love each other, how different we are. So I had a bit of my relationship with being in control my entire life. And by the way, we can actually talk about being in control as being a diagnosable dilemma or diagnosable attribute. I probably have like such a high level of desire to be in control for so many reasons, some of which are probably not healthy. That actually worked inversely in my relationship with alcohol or it really informed because if I have more than one drink, I feel like I'm out of control. And in
Mhm.
fact, I don't think I'm out of control. I think I am already no inhibitions. And so
Right.
no inhibitions in terms of how I communicate with folks, how I communicate to large audiences. And so like I will do things sober that require most people to have a lot of alcohol on. And I know that. So having more than one drink, I'm afraid of like how
How far will it go?
how far will it go? How truthful will I be? What will I get into in the conversation? What, like, standing up in the middle of a party and dance, I don't say naked on a table, but or anything like that. But for sure, I already have a low bar for inhibitions. And so control for me is really, really high. And I have some rules around alcohol for socializing because even like I will go to a New Year's party. I'll probably have two drinks, because I'm so conscientious of that control piece. And I have gotten drunk. Have I gotten drunk with you before, Christine? I don't even know that I have.
I don't think there was one night we went to dinner where we were probably like a little bit on the
But like
fun
I've
side, but
never that
yeah,
I got drunk once I got drunk once in high school. I got drunk once in college. And I mean, you could probably count the time on one hand that I've gotten really, really inebriated. But
yeah,
I'm hyper, hyper conscientious of it because one, and the other thing is it makes me feel like shit. Like
yeah,
I feel so badly. My feet swell up. I'm dry, like everything about it is so gross for me. And I'm good with one glass of white wine or a clean vodka martini with nothing in it. So I'm like, and one is good. So I haven't struggled the way you have. I will tell you something that's a bit interesting in terms of how alcohol as a medication, because we're talking about it as a self-medication, right? You
right.
said how you were self-medicating with alcohol. And I'm curious, Nicole, once we pass it over to you, where your generation fits with this, and because I think your perspective is different. I remember I think it was in my early 40s, and I went to my primary doc, and I was in a period in my life when I was feeling a lot of anxiety, and
Mhm.
it was a higher amount of anxiety that I'd ever experienced before. It was when I was still a belly dance teacher. I wasn't feeling like I was in control of my earning. I felt a lot of vulnerability about the investment I had made, and I was just anxious all the time. Like it was palatable. And folks who experience anxiety pretty regularly know that there's like a feeling in your body. Like there's like,
Oh, yeah.
I've got anxiety rolling through my body. So I go to my primary guy, and he's like, well, let's talk about the different ways that you can address it. And he tells me about the different categories of anxiety and depression drugs. And he basically goes in and tells me about the side effects of antidepressant. He starts with, so first of all, there's weight gain. I was like, well,
Mhm.
fuck that. And then he was like, and there's acne, and there's vaginal dryness, and there's like lowering your sex drive, and like and basically he goes through and he tells me all the side effects. I was like, yeah, all that's going to do is increase my anxiety. What are my options? And he said to me, and will never forget this. He goes, "Are you an alcoholic?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Would you consider when you feel that coming on, even if it's midday, doing a shot of vodka?" And that, he said, if you are not an alcoholic, that a shot of vodka it has a similar impact on your body. Now, I'm not giving medical advice. I am not
Right.
recommending. I'm just saying that I think that even our healthcare providers are aware of the efficacy in introducing alcohol to kind of help address what can sometimes be, on quick onset of anxiety, or I don't think it's
Right.
long-term treatment, but I did think that was interesting. And
That is
while I was going
interesting.
through that period, I actually did it a few times. I was like, yeah, this works for me. And I, was fine stopping after that. Of course, then I just wanted to take an afternoon nap, but that's a whole different issue.
That's a whole other thing. I mean, one shot of vodka, you're not gonna feel hungover, you're not gonna have the anxiety the next day
Yeah.
that you feel terrible.
You
It
don't have the sugar problem that you have with wine and how it
right.
works in your
It's
liver.
the one
Yeah,
bottle of wine,
right.
and then all that does is move the anxiety from that night to the next morning because you wake up and you feel so terrible and you think, "What did I not get done last night? I feel terrible today. Now I'm slow moving. I'm gonna be late to this call, this meeting. I'm not gonna be effective." And I remember just I can't say this has been consistently a problem in my lifetime. I think it's like little pockets of years, a couple years here, a couple years there. I mean, the good thing is when the kids were little, there was no time for that. There was just no time. When I was pregnant, no time for that. Before I had the kids, I think it was much more about socializing for me. So it's really more in these last few years. And obviously with all the alcohol, the weight gain, all of that. The fact that instead of going to the gym, you're sitting on the couch drinking the wine. But I will say our culture in the United States just so focuses socialization around alcohol. And I'm to blame as much. I mean, one, I learned it, and then two, I made it. When women come over, here's the bottle of wine, here's what we're doing. And I still want to have a glass of wine with you, Saphira. I'm not saying that is I'm all of a sudden a teetotaler and I'm like, we can only have juice, but we make it the focus and the center point versus, a lot of the other ways that we could socialize. So, I will say this is another reason why I'm touting this medicine is just such a miracle because it just gave me so much more reflection on how I want my life. And, now I will say, Nicole, we've had a night or two where we've had quite a few drinks and we have laughed and we have been silly and we have told stories and we have probably shared more than we would have otherwise. And I do have a fondness for those nights of connection that the inhibitions coming down
Mhm.
create. Nicole, I know, Nicole, you and I both are lament them the next morning, but I don't, tell us a little bit about, how alcohol was in your life in college and after.
Oh, so for me, I feel like I lean more towards Saphira in terms of like I've never been one to drink a lot. Like I grew up like my parents would have like wine while they're making dinner or beer grilling, but never like in excess when we were growing up. And then, so when I went to college, like I definitely partaked, but I wasn't like, I don't like to feel bad the next morning. I don't like to feel like I'm not in control. So if I was at a party, I'd have a drink or two, but I'd never wanted to feel like I couldn't be in charge of my own safety, that I was relying on others for that. I also think too, like I grew up in a family where safety was priority, especially there's four girls. So it was drilled into us about being aware and what to do and how to act. But I will say, as I've gotten older, what's interesting to me is like, again, I still only like the one or two, but it's the social aspect of it, of like, every party, if you're meeting up with friends, it's let's go out for drinks is always the first, instead of maybe like coffee or, the party is centered around what drink are you bringing? Oh, I have to bring wine to so and so's like house, whatever it is. But then the other aspect, I think, especially in the past, what, 5 to 7 years, the my run club is at a brewery. It starts and ends at a brewery. So after run club, like in college, I did a run club. You got a free beer when you were done. So I'd be running with my exercise physiology professors, and then we'd have a beer. Or like one of the newer things is they're doing all these like yoga classes or boot camps at a brewery. So you go work
Mm.
out, and then you get a free mimosa, beer, wine, whatever it is. And so it's this weird, like everything in our society feels like for my age group especially is like centered around that, even those healthy options. Like I love going to boot camp and then I'm going to stay for beer and a brunch. But
Mhm.
it's that juxtaposition of what's healthy and what's not, and how they've kind of made that like that's just what you do, or like
Well,
my
it's the reward, right? You
right.
work out hard, and the reward is alcohol.
Well, and the other thing too, especially again, like with my generation and like the rise of all these like microbreweries and the local breweries and things like that, is I feel like every time we go to a brewery, there's at minimum 4 or 5 couples with their newborn to 5-year-olds, hanging out. And I'm like, that's totally fine. But when did, like, my parents would have never brought me to a brewery because that wasn't what you did. Like, that would be like taking me to the bar, like it's interesting to me to see people my age where that's where they go hang out with their friends who have all just had babies, like at the brewery. I don't
Yeah,
know.
they've made them very family friendly. They are, it's like the
Yeah.
adults get to have fun, but the kids can run around kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I have a question for you. And I don't know this. And actually this probably would be part of the research is I'm curious if it's your generation or if it's us, the Xers getting older, what's driving this sober curious and non-alcoholic drink craze, right? So something
Yeah.
is driving that. So there is a curiosity, at least in the United States, around not drinking. I think they call it sober curious. So you're
Yeah.
not necessarily like, I don't drink ever, but I'm trying this not drinking thing.
When
And then I went into a liquor store in Charleston and every bit of liquor in the liquor store was non-alcoholic.
Mhm.
And you're looking at, yeah.
Wait a second. Non-alcoholic liquor. Walk me through that.
Yeah,
Again,
Well,
so
this
under a
mocktail
rock.
movement. Yeah,
well,
it's
the vodka tastes like vodka, but it's not
yeah,
alcoholic. The tequila tastes like tequila. You can make a cocktail. They have mixed cocktails, they have mocktails, they have all sorts of things, but nothing has alcohol. And
right.
that would not have existed 10 years ago.
I didn't
So,
even
When
know that that was a thing. I mean, I've
so
seen mocktails, but I thought that was just like a juice mix.
no, you
well,
could
and that's the
make
thing.
like an old fashioned that has no
Yeah.
alcohol.
When I will say, like, for me, like, I've thought about, like, I've definitely had my sober curious moments just because too, like, because of the societal things, or just like I'm someone that like I'm very, I feel like Mike tells me that like my body is so sensitive to everything, like heat, temperature, food, water, alcohol, whatever the thing is. And so like for me, if I feel bad, I don't want to do it. So there are times that I'm like I don't drink at the house. And it's not because that's a conscious choice that I make. I just like have never kept stuff at the house. And when I do, it's because someone else is coming and they're like, "Oh, let's have a glass of wine." I'm like, "Oh yeah, like I can do that at home." Like I just don't, it
Yeah.
doesn't come up for me. It's only when I go out that I drink. So I could easily cut it out and it would be something for me, but it's that social aspect of what if I'm the only person in the room that doesn't have a drink? Like what, like I'm also like I have social anxiety, so that's something I worry about is people's perception of me and what I do. And I think that's where the sober curious plus the mocktails really come into play. Like you can't go to a bar these days without at least 3 mocktails on the menu because you want to look like you are a part of the group, even if you don't want to partake. And some people have more confidence in that versus others. But I do think that's been the one of the drivers is it's such a social thing that the mocktail makes it easy to blend in and you don't have to be like self-conscious about standing there with a water, for example, you know?
Yeah. Well, and also they taste good and they're fun. I mean, part
Yeah.
of why you drink an alcoholic drink is for the taste, and they're to me, I'm a gin martini girl. I like more of a salty drink in many ways. So I'm curious. I want to get a non-alcoholic gin and make myself a martini and see if it feels just as good, tastes just as good. And because if my purpose is not to start that numbing feeling or to get drunk, then I don't need the alcohol. I don't need it. It's just calories I don't need. Um, but I mean, this brings up the question, I've tried on occasion to substitute cannabis for alcohol, and I haven't had a lot of success with it. And I think one of my reasons is I I don't really know what my equivalent of cannabis to 2 glasses of wine is. And, I'm not interested in smoking, so it's usually edibles, which gummies. It takes a little bit of time. I'm never really sure. I'm like, if I eat half of this 5 milligram, am I gonna feel anything? But if I pop the whole 5 milligram, it might be more than I can handle, you know?
Right.
So I haven't explored like the seltzers or any of those things, but I do think cannabis in many ways, you can avoid the hangover, you can avoid some of the things that you get with alcohol and still maybe get an effect you want of feeling a little less inhibited if you need that, and a little more comfortable in a social environment. But I don't know, Sphira.
It
I haven't
processes
yet
different
cracked
through
the
your body.
code.
Yeah, and I haven't. It processes differently through your body. So if your liver is sensitive to sugar, which is part of the issue with alcohol and wine and sugar in your liver and all that, it definitely has a different, like, makes its way through your body differently. I also have not done the seltzers or the teas, and frankly, my relationship with cannabis, even though it's my full-time existence, I also don't consume via a vapor smokable product. But I'm a gummy. I like the sleep gummies.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid if I did it in the beginning of a dinner party, I would like be asleep by the main course. Oh
Right,
my
and that's where you have to learn about the strains and you have to, I always
God.
feel like it's one of those things like for Generation X, we just grew up in this just say no. And I mean, all three of us work in cannabis. We all know probably more than most consumers. And I still am like, is this one going to make me feel tired? Is this the right one? Is this,
Mhm.
and I go in and I do talk to the bud tender and I've said like, I want this to replace wine at a
Right.
party. And I still don't feel like I get the right effect. It's not the same. And I do know plenty of friends that have found it to be a great replacement for alcohol.
Mm.
Um, but I think one of the things I'm actually saying is I've realized I don't need either. That's the bigger piece, right? I don't actually need either. Um, but I'm not 100% sure that I guess what I'm saying is I can't imagine being 100% sober in our society and socializing.
Well, and I have friends who are alcoholics and recovering alcoholics, and they measure their sobriety in a very black and white way. Like there's absolutely no alcohol versus people who are trying to like just temper off the amount that they drink. So I think
Right.
there is a distinction between people whose sobriety is a part of a disease, and I want to make sure we're acknowledging that distinction.
Yes.
But it sounds like to me, Christine, that you have had come to a realization, and that you know alcohol will serve as an accessory that you pick up when it serves your outfit, as opposed to being the main part of your outfit every
Right.
day. And that, when you think about concepts around balance or concepts around intentionality, because we talk about intentionality a lot on our program, you're kind of thinking about how do I want to design my life so I'm headed in this direction? That's the intentionality piece. And you've got a hyper awareness around what has not served you in that intentionality. It sounds like you've just got more control. You've got your hands on the reins of your journey with more certainty and more confidence that maybe in the past you didn't have that for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, for our age, Saphira, is we have children that are exploring alcohol, want to explore alcohol. Um, one of my things, my husband and I have very different opinions on this. My husband is like, no tolerance for underage drinking. It can't happen. It cannot be. And if it ever is, I better never know about it, never see it, never have a clue.
Because denial is a river in Egypt, correct? I
Yes,
just to make sure.
yes.
Got
And
it.
I
I wanted
mean,
to make sure I knew
he's
where we
got it,
were.
right?
Got it. Go. Oh,
Yep.
you're not going to tell me
And
about this.
what that was how my parents were. It was like there's just no tolerance for it. There would be no opportunity for it. And if you got caught, severe consequences. And maybe we know it is happening somewhere somehow, but you better be so good and secretive about it that you never get caught. My problem with that is that when I got to college, day one, I was like, how much can I get and how fast? I told you guys it was like that when I got to college about Doritos and potato chips. It
Mhm.
was so restricted that I was like shot out of a cannon to get as much as I could, as fast as I could, and to experience all of it. And so, my thought as a parent is I'd like there to be some level of understanding about what alcohol is all about, what it can be like.
Mm.
Yes, it can be fun. I mean, there are drunk nights from college where I can tell you they were so much fun. So much fun. There are also drunk nights from college where I'm shocked I'm still alive. I made some very poor choices. So I talked to my especially my oldest, being 17, about the fact that I know he's going to drink, that the driving is never an option, period, no matter what, and that I'd prefer people not barf in my house. So, and that his dad is never going to tolerate it, but that I want it to be in a safe environment, that I want him to experiment and try a little bit here and there so that he doesn't get to college and become a lunatic.
Yeah.
And I also want him to understand that it can be fun, but it doesn't have to be the focus of your social life. You can have guys over to play poker and you guys can have a great time without beer. And maybe there is a time and a place where you guys can have beers while you play poker, but it doesn't have to be part of socializing. It's a hard balance because I have a non-cooperative spouse in this, but I've tried to be able to have really open dialogue with Ronan about drinking and what the consequences he's already seen happen to people
Mhm.
and that he's experienced, and to also have him understand that it is going to be very prevalent when you get to college. Period. You can choose to not be at the parties and at the drinking scene. There are ways to go through college and really enjoy yourself without alcohol, but his knowing his nature, he wants to join a fraternity. He is very social. It is going to be part of his life. And if now he can learn a little bit about it, I think it's really important. So it's been a hard little balancing game for us. I cannot sit down and openly have a glass of wine with him in my house because, Oj would be very upset about that. So I'm trying to balance it. And I totally understand, Oj's perspective. That is one model. It is follows the law. It follows the letter of the law. I get it. He's a lawyer. It's just not my personal choice and how I would do it if I were parenting alone. So I'm balancing that, but I don't know, Saphira,
I don't think
how are
I
you feeling?
realized he was as strict about that. Yeah, and I'm more in line with you. In fact, I actually have a real motivation for my son, who's now 18, in learning to tolerate substances. So I have kind of long said since COVID that I am prioritizing rearing my son with, like, first and foremost mental health. Like, the first and foremost is I need his mental health to be healthy and intact, and him to have a good core in his mental health. And mental health and physical health are kind of connected, right? But
Right,
usually, if you have poor physical health, it's because the mental health is not in place. So let's just say that. Then the next kind of iteration of what I'm hoping to parent him on is on good judgment. And so
right,
this is where the alcohol comes in, because I actually think that I have responsibility in teaching him on how to navigate through these inevitable um, kind of influences. And alcohol is an influence. And so
right.
I want him, I mean, we have just, I know it's a violation of the law, but, like, he will have a beer with Thai food having dinner, and we drink wine as a family, and his friends come over and cook at the house and they bring a bottle of wine. And all the kids have fake IDs, and so he can get anything he wants with that, which I'm not like an advocate for underage consumption of alcohol or marijuana, but I 100% want him to be ready for being out on his own. And with the driving thing, I remember we were going through this because as adults we don't necessarily model, like, if we go to a party and my husband has had one drink or two drinks, he's like, I'm okay to drive. That is not a model for children. A
Right.
model for children is, if any amount of alcohol passes your lips, you are not driving. And let me tell you, just getting them through when they quote unquote think they can handle something, that's been a huge parenting obstacle, because I've got an 18-year-old boy whose personality is a little bit like your 17-year-old, which is,
Yes.
I'm fantastic, I'm strong, I'm sexy, I'm invincible. And I'm like, no, you are not. you know so I'm also, my parenting style is through bribery. I giveth so I can take it away. So
Yes.
if I ever see alcohol past your lips and you take your keys to the car, I'll just take away your car. Like, I'm
There'll be
so,
never tolerance.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like zero tolerance for that. But I actually think, I really adore your husband, but I think he is off on this one in raising boys. I think you've got to give these boys a sense of what it feels like so they can recognize it. I can tell you, this past year, one of our close friends, whose parenting style and alcohol is similar to ours, but they're close friends, not friends of ours, was more like Osha's.
Yeah.
There was a homecoming. The kid who grew up in the family where the hell no alcohol, he goes out and drinks with friends. On the homecoming, the parents were out of town with the older child in college, and the kid gets so drunk that he ends up passing out in bushes, and kids find him.
Oh God. So
And,
scary.
and he had to go to the hospital. Like, his first experience was so extreme. And I said, I do believe that that was a direct reflection of parents not integrating their child into this relationship with what is going to be an influence, and alcohol is an influence for him. And so I think that is what happens when you've got a child who's hyper curious and hyper motivated, and you don't help them navigate through it. It's
Yeah.
unrealistic. And the other thing that is so important, and we've talked about this, is that these kids, especially with, have high sexual curiosity as well. And
Right.
alcohol and sexual curiosity are not great partners.
No.
The girls lose their sense of clarity, the boys lose their sense of clarity and control. And I mean, obviously, we want to raise our sons to be consent, 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 consent. And then when you're not sure, consent again. And alcohol completely butts up against that. So it is really
Yes.
dangerous for these kids at this moment, both girls and boys.
Yeah, I mean, much to my my children's chagrin, I have said to them a number of times, if you're drinking, that is not the time to go all the way for the first time with a girl.
Mhm.
That is not at that party is not the time. That is not good. Because you just have no idea how long tail that the repercussions of that decision might be.
Mhm.
And and I mean, I can honestly, I mean, I could tell you stories that I can't actually probably tell them all because my mother would just die at this point if she heard them all. But the amount of places that I put myself at risk in college because of drinking too much. But all my friends, we did. I mean, we really, and there were a handful that didn't. I have one friend that went through all of college without drinking. And there were others that were much more tempered at it. But there were so many of us just drinking at such an extreme level and then making such dangerous decisions. One night I left the bars and I was supposed to walk back to my condo. All my friends were going back to a different house. And they were, this is landlines, no cell phones. They were like, call us when you get back because you're the only one walking by yourself. Call us at the house when you get back to the apartment. And I didn't call them because on my way home, I crossed over the railroad tracks and there was a homeless man sitting on the railroad tracks. And I decided to sit down and have an hour-long conversation with him. And lucky for me, he was a nice person. We had a very interesting conversation. I'd put it in my study of humans book of interviews that I've done in my lifetime when I think I'm a news reporter in really odd moments. And I eventually walked home, and there were probably 15 of my friends in the parking lot freaking out.
Yeah.
They had driven over because I had never called. They had called my apartment. They said I wasn't there, and no one knew where I was. I mean, what a dumb decision. Never
Well,
mind the times where I let
mean,
yeah,
yeah, there's so much. I mean, the thing is that you just said decision, like it is, I mean, the impairment on the judgment for young people and for us as well. Um, it's, I mean,
yeah,
judgment piece that gets skewed when your body starts ingesting alcohol. It's a judgment piece that is just so
so
off kilter.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, as all of us head through the holidays and, think about how we want our relationship with alcohol to be in 2025, I will say I do feel a wonderful benefit of this medicine giving me the clarity and also the lack of the craving and the drive, because there is something very true to the fact that so much of it was a craving that was not just of my decision, to say, oh, I really need this right now. But I think, all of us being thoughtful about how we have alcohol in our lives, what are the benefits and what are the repercussions. I think it's a good time to be reflective and to think about, if you're doing dry January, which I've always said I could never have made it through dry January. Now I'm like, who cares? No big deal. It wouldn't bother me at all. I could do January, February, March. Who cares? And then maybe have one glass of wine one night because I want to, but I don't have to like knuckle through a month.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's a good time to think about how you want alcohol to be present in your life. So
Well,
I
a
really
great
appreciate
topic.
this.
Yeah, a great topic. So thank you for bringing it up. And thanks, Christine, for being so forthcoming. I mean, I'm always amazed about how comfortable you are kind of acknowledging times in your life and experiences and growth that at the time you probably couldn't envision being as forthcoming and as honest about it. But it real
Yeah.
but it shows the caliber of your character and the courage of your character. But it also shows that, we as humans evolve. And
Yes.
it seems like the only way, in one year, 10 years ago, you can totally see it from a different perspective. So the
Yeah.
good news on, we'll thank you later, you'll thank us later, is that if you're not happy with where you are now, just look at Christine, Nicole, and me and know that you can totally look back on this time where you're not happy and be in a totally different place and you can shift that shit.
That's right. I mean, if we
It
don't
may take
evolve
a
and
while,
change,
but it is shiftable. That shit is shiftable.
it sure is. And also, it doesn't define you for the rest of your life.
No,
I mean,
yeah,
people will talk about Christine Wilson as a party girl. She's a
yeah.
party girl. She loves parties. She has a good time. And I still will be a party girl, even if I don't have a lot of alcohol or any alcohol in my life. I will still have a lot of fun. So it's all good. But Thanks, guys, so much. And I will see you next week. And thank you for listening to You'll Thank Us Later.